Welcome to the Tuesday night call. As always, I always get charged up for these. Tuesday night, I always put my son to bed, and he's like, "Dad, do you have your call tonight?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, I hate it when you have your call," because he's like, "You can't snuggle me," And I always tell him, I'm like, "I always snuggle you till you fall asleep." And the hard part is I'm usually snuggling him, and sometimes I pass out. But I always set my alarm just to make sure I don't miss the call. But anyway, so I get charged up to come in here. Tonight we're going to talk about the most effective marketing strategies to get leads. And before I get into that, just real quick, always I love to make people aware of the resources I offer. Like I was talking to Paige just a few minutes ago. I said, why do you like to come to these calls? And she's like, because they're free. And I'm like, good. And that's what I want, is I want to give away some really, really good stuff in a world where we just get barely enough stuff before we have to, enter a name and email address and, or buy something. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely value to that, and we all need to have those offers, and we need to, grow our database and things like that. But there's also a place where we can really give away some really, really good content, get some really, really good followers, and build the tribe of people who are interested in what we're doing. And that's part of what I want to teach as well. So always check out my website, sellingcoaching.com, under the university. That's where I will post all these Tuesday night call recordings. I usually post them on Fridays, send out an email to make people aware. And then I have a lot of other quick videos that I do on there that I put on, usually at least a couple a week, if not one or two, that I throw on there as well. And I also post different things on my Selling Coaching Facebook page, just to make you aware of that. And if you haven't been to my Facebook page yet, I would really appreciate it if you head over there and like it. Liking is important, and I'll be describing that when we talk about, not so much tonight in marketing, but if we're doing some Facebook marketing, the liking comes into play there as well. And those of you that aren't over on my private Facebook group for Selling Coaching, again, I don't want you to just join to join. A lot of people are like, oh, I just want big numbers, and I could care less how many people I have on there. It's more a matter of people who want to be there and people that want to interact. And we're doing some really cool things in helping people get their message out there, kind of almost like a practice ground, if you will. Like I'm helping people get going on some videos, and even if they don't have their niche or their message nailed out yet, I'm really looking to get people to just share their message and promote themselves a little bit in front of people so they can get used to that. And the video piece is a really, really important component of that. If you're not doing videos, again, it's something that I highly recommend, especially when it comes down to marketing strategies. I'll get into that a little bit tonight, but video is a phenomenal, phenomenal way, especially if you're doing something online. The challenge with it, though, is that a lot of people freak out with video because it's, oh my God, I'm on a video. And there's a lot that goes into it, but when we get used to it, it's a fantastic medium. So either way, if you can head over to the Selling Coaching Facebook group and check that out, read the description. If it's something you want to join, I'd love to have you over there and integrate you with the group. And it's also, I love it because it's so much better than email. We can really interact more. I can interact and get to know people a lot better as well. So tonight, let's talk about the most effective marketing strategies to get leads. So let me say this to begin. Everything I'm going to talk about tonight, let me boil it down for a few big things that I'll most likely reiterate quite a few times throughout the call. And this is like the bottom line stuff. First off, if we want to get clients, we need leads, right? There's no way we can get clients if we don't have leads. So we need to market. The biggest thing is we could get all the leads in the world. However, if we're not working and honing and fine-tuning our selling skills, all the leads in the world don't matter. If you get enough leads, eventually there's going to be people that are going to be hiring you. So it's not like, oh, if you're not good at selling, you're never going to get anybody. But therein lies my passion for the whole premise of my message now with Selling Coaching and why I went from what I was doing in the world of entrepreneurship in my coaching business for a good 10 plus years and switching it completely into working with coaches now is because it's like I understood that selling is a huge aspect, and I was doing a lot of that in different components in my business, working with other business owners. And I wanted to bring this to coaches because it's such a huge component, that's selling and understanding the dynamic of it and how to convert a lead and finding if someone's serious versus curious, and if they're serious about considering working with a coach. So that's why I do a lot of the calls and a lot of my content's on that aspect. But also we have to start to understand how we market ourselves and how we get ourselves out there so we can generate some interest in what we do. And that's really what tonight's about. So forget about how good or not good you are at selling, because at the end of the day, you've got to get leads to practice that anyway. So that's a positive piece. When it comes to all this stuff I'm going to talk to you about tonight, don't think of it as like, oh, I've got to get really hardcore and understand marketing, right? There's going to be people that talk about marketing and they're like marketing gurus or whatever they are. And I'm not saying don't listen to them, but what my message is right now is that at the end of the day, the bottom line message when it comes to marketing is get your message out there. Number one. Number two, get your message out there consistently. What does consistently mean? Ideally, every single day. Take weekends off. I don't do anything on the weekends. Doesn't mean I'll never do anything on the weekends, but I take weekends off. Spend time with my boy, do some fun things, but at least during your business days, the 5 days of the week, get your message out there. I don't care if it's a blog post, if it's a video, if your message could be getting out there, interacting with people, networking with people, anything that you're doing ultimately to help people, empower people, whether it's commenting on something, it's sharing your word, education, doing events. And we're going to go through more of these details. But and don't get too caught up in the technical details. If you're doing online marketing, there's a million things and there's a million gurus that can help you with Facebook ads and marketing and how to most effectively work with LinkedIn and all different social platforms. And I'm not saying don't work with them. I'll talk about that a little bit tonight. I hired a Facebook ad coach to help me create Facebook ad platforms and campaigns right now, because I can do them and I've done them and they've worked, but I'm like, there's so much that I don't know about it. I want to make it a lot more effective. But without all that stuff, it's like, just do something. And that's the bottom line, is don't worry about all the details of it. A lot of coaches that I work with get hung up in the details of the marketing aspect, and then what they do is they get overwhelmed with it. And when people get overwhelmed with it, we don't do anything with it. Let's say you're going to be making a video for something online. It doesn't matter where it is. Even in my selling coaching group, I've like been having people make some videos of just saying, hey, your name, your website, and just tell us what you do. Another week was tell us why you do what you do. Another week was just show us your personality. Just get on camera and tell a funny story, or just share something about yourself to show us your personality. I'm trying to get people used to getting in front of video, but a lot of people they'll think about it so much, and then they paralyze themselves, and then at the end of the day, they don't end up doing anything. And that's why before I talk about any of this stuff, and I'm not going to go into like heavy details of it, but none of the details matter if you're not getting the basic message out there. And a lot of people, especially that I talk with, are now I'm really, pushing those videos. If you notice, pretty much everything I do is like audio or video mostly. It's a great medium for that. But a lot of people are like, oh, I can't do video, or I don't know how to do it, or I'm too scared, or I don't know if my message is valuable enough. And it's like, okay, don't do that. Then just write something and then put a picture of a picture next to it and post it. Either way, it's going to get you out there. And that's the message. I can't reiterate that enough. So now that I've said those, I've said my piece with that, let's talk about how having one message and one audience helps. So we are all aware, and we've heard over and over again, okay, well, what's your niche and what's your elevator pitch? And, what do you do when people ask you, what do you do? Like, what do you say? So just real quick on this piece. So the major value in having a niche, and I like to, instead of saying niche, I like to say one message, one audience. It just, to me, it helps us understand really what a niche is. All my niche does is it takes me and it takes everything that I teach and it brings it down to what's my one message? What's my one bottom line message? And then who is that message for? So now how this helps us and the biggest value in that comes down to marketing. So when we market, now what that allows us to do is it allows us to say, now I've got one message and I've got one audience. Where do they hang out? Where do they talk? Where do they go? Where can I meet them? Where can I be with them? How can I get in front of them? And the more clearly we've identified that, the more easily we can find where they are, and then we can figure out a strategy on how we can get in front of them. We can create a content plan. We can create a marketing plan because we know where they are. It's just going to be a lot more effective. And then, of course, our message then can become a whole lot more valuable because we're talking to them. And I'll say it like this. So many coaches, and myself included when I graduated in 2004, we're so enamored by the coaching process. And typically it's because, we go to coaching school because we're maybe in a transition with our career, or we're not loving where we are, and we're looking for something else. Typically it's something to do with something we're going through in our lives as well. We go to a coaching school and then it's like we have this amazing transformational process through coaching. We get coached in a lot of ways, and it's like we have all these breakthroughs, and it's like, especially people that have never done personal development before, and we start like connecting with other like-minded people, and we start reading some amazing books, and our mind just opens up and it expands, and we all attribute it to this thing called coaching, and we're just like, oh, I love coaching because I love what it's done for me. And now it's just like anything else that's transformed your life, like maybe fitness or religion or something like that, which really makes such a big impact. It's like now you want to share it and share it with the world. And a lot of people then want to make it their business. And so with that, we come out and a lot of it just becomes, we get lost in the wash of personal development, because personal development, while it's hugely valuable, it's everywhere. It's a dime a dozen. And what makes your message different from anybody else's? And so that's where that niche comes in, is that if I can pick one audience with one message, now what happens is I could actually take the same general personal development stuff. Let's just say goal setting. I mean, how much more general could I be? Goal setting. I could work with a dog on goal setting, right? And so I'm going to do goal setting. But now if I do goal setting for coaches looking to create a full-time business, do you see how it takes something very general and it makes it more specific? And now that goal setting, whatever I'm doing on it, becomes more valuable because all of a sudden now it's for coaches, or it's for moms, it's for, you fill in the blank. If you're not quite there yet, meaning you don't quite narrow it down your message, or you've still got 2 or 3 that you like and you don't quite have that audience yet, I don't want that to stop you. I don't want you to stop, trying to figure it out. But when I started off in 2004 doing coaching, like honestly, even until I started really working with coaches seriously this year, I've been working with them for the last 2.5 years, but not as my full-time thing. I never really had a solid niche other than I worked with entrepreneurs. So the reason I'm sharing this is because I've seen the value of both sides, and the value of having a niche is absolutely unequivocally far easier to market, far much better to develop your message and see how it becomes more valuable. On the other side of it, it doesn't mean you can't be successful if you don't have a niche. I will say this though, if you don't have a niche, and let's just say the general population, if you will, can be your market, you're just gonna have to work a lot harder and get in front of a lot more people and be that much better in terms of your delivery and your content, and then also the selling aspects of that. I had the fortune of, I was just a speaking machine, meaning I didn't do a lot of online stuff. I'm doing a lot of primarily online stuff now, other than this, but it's all virtual. But I did a lot of one-on-one events. I mean, I built my 10-year coaching practice on live events, multi-speaker events that I was doing, and that's where I built my database and I got my clients from. And it's a very viable way of doing it. It's easier though if you have a niche, because again, your audience becomes that more valuable. So I wanted to bring that up because it's something we hear often. However, if you're not quite there yet, because I know a lot of coaches that are coming out of school, going through school, or even been doing it for a while, they don't have it. I don't want that to stop you from marketing, because again, as I said just a few minutes ago, if you're not doing anything, it's not doing yourself any good. And oftentimes, by starting to develop your content and getting some information out there, you'll begin to see who's gravitating towards you, who's end up saying, wow, I love your stuff, who starts following you, who starts asking you questions, who hires you, what are you working with these people on? And then oftentimes what I found is that I began to develop my message. I developed a niche in the sense of the things that I began to speak or talk with. And so, and that's where maybe your brand can also come from. So just that's a great way to begin, is in recognizing that if you don't have it quite yet, by beginning, you're going to kind of find your path and your way into that. When it comes to marketing now, I say save your money. Why we can market for free. How about this? Starting off, if you have a choice to pay for something versus not pay for something, I would not pay for something right now. And there are plenty of valuable things that you can pay for. However, we have to understand when it comes to marketing, the key to marketing is that it's being in front of people on a consistent basis. It's the reason why you see commercials over and over and over again. It's the reason why, if you still get a newspaper or the mail on Sundays or whatever, there's these flyers that you get, and all the major retailers and all the major stores, etc., they always put a flyer in with those mailings. They always do it. They don't do it every other Sunday. They don't do it, once a month. They do it every Sunday or whatever frequency it is. And they do it all the time. And the philosophy behind marketing is that in selling is that people buy when they have a need. And the second point is, you've heard me say this a lot before if you've been following me, is the timing is right. And the key is the timing is right. And so when the timing is right, you've got to be in front of your person or your people. When I'm ready to buy a TV, if Best Buy doesn't send out a flyer that Sunday because, whatever, I'm lazy. Or maybe we'll just, cut our budget back a little bit and we'll do it every other Sunday. That one, week or Sunday or whatever it is that I decide I need a new TV and I don't get the Best Buy flyer, guess what? Whoever's top of mind wins. When someone's ready to buy, they're ready to buy. And that's why when it comes to marketing, if you will, from a philosophy standpoint, as I said earlier, it's like we've got to do it and we've got to do it consistently. When you send emails out, when you do blog posts, when you do posts on Facebook or whatever platforms you're doing, when you've got an event that you're marketing and you're just getting it in front of people, whether it's a flyer or whatever it is, even if they just delete it or they don't do anything with it, the value of your name being in their inbox and for that moment swiping across, to delete the message or whatever it is and seeing your name, Jeffrey St Laurent, insert your own name, of course. But every time they see that name, that is marketing. That's just like seeing the Best Buy flyer as you're throwing it in the trash. It's just there in front of you. And people pay to get in front of people. So now what I'm talking here is not necessarily paying for anything, meaning I want you to find ways, and I want to talk about some of this, I want you to find ways where you can get yourself in front of people for free. And now, especially with the online world in terms of social media and different platforms there's plenty of ways we can get ourselves in front of people for free and doing that legwork right there. And it can be just as effective as paying for things, and sometimes even more effective in those manners. All right? So this call, for instance, as I said earlier, it's like when Paige is on the line, she's like, I'm like, why do you like these calls? I'm like, well, they're free. And it's like, absolutely. So it's free, but it's also free for me too, right? I'm advertising. Am I selling you anything tonight? No, I'm not saying at the end of the call, the beginning of the call, hey, I've got this great thing that I'm doing, or here's a great product for you. At some point, absolutely, I'll have some things for you to buy. But what I'm doing is we have to realize is that what we're selling is we're selling our energy, we're selling our enthusiasm, we're selling our message, we're selling what we can do with people. And when they start hearing that message over and over again, at some point they're gonna realize that I need some help. And all of a sudden they get an email from whoever it is. And you know what? I've been working with this person. I've been listening to their stuff. I've been watching with them. And you know what? The timing's right. And next thing you know, you get an email, you get a call, you get some recommendation, you get a lead. And that's who you follow up on it. And all of a sudden you've got a client, or you get someone else buying your product or service. And that's the kind of that repetition of marketing. And so that's what we say is whatever it is, paid or free, and I have you go for free, it's that repetition, and that's what marketing is all about. So I'm going to get into like the paid and the free stuff, but where I'm going with this now is what I call education-based marketing. And you might have heard this before, but education-based marketing is just like this call, is I'm just giving great information. And hopefully it's great because it's relevant for the people that are listening to this. And that's what I want you to do is give education, give valuable education. And education-based marketing is just our way of helping people with our information. And like I said, when you help people enough and it's over a certain amount of time, they follow you and they like your information. And as I said, when the timing's right, that's when they convert and they do something with you. And it's one, especially with what we do as a coach, there's really no other way that I've found that's effective, and this is just my personal experience, right? Like running an ad in something, whether it's even on social media platforms, like specific ads, ads in papers, newspapers, magazines. I've run ads before and tried different things out. And things can get very expensive very quickly. And at the end of the day, unless people know who you are or you have some recognition, like if Tony Robbins is hosting, Tony Robbins Walk on Fire event or whatever event that he's doing, it's like, well, I've heard of Tony Robbins. So if I see it in a billboard or an online ad or in a newspaper or in a magazine, and like a success magazine or whatever, I know Tony Robbins. So I pay attention to it a little bit more, or I'm like, what's that? And I might look at it. But when you see somebody else like us, like they don't know us. So unless you're in front of people all the time and it's more of a warm market, those type of ads, you just get, again, you got to keep running and running and running them. And that's the challenge is that for it to paid advertisement like that, for it to actually be effective, you got to do it a lot longer, and therefore it's a lot more money. And that's where you're spending a lot of money that you don't need to spend on that type of thing, whereas you could be doing a lot of the free aspects that get you in front of the people and not spending that money. So that's a big point of that is it's just you have to spend too much of a time. We want to create more of a warm market with this education-based marketing, so giving away information. And that's where when we talk about free versus paid, there's something called publicity versus advertising. So advertising in the technical sense is I'm going to pay to put something in a publication, online, offline, whatever it is, right? I'm going to pay someone to put my ad in there, etc. But publicity is when someone says, hey, you know what, can you write this article? Or we're looking for an article on X, Y, and Z, and I can write that. Or I'm doing an event and they're going to write about the event, like, Jeff St. Laurent's going to be hosting an event at a local place and it's going to be doing X, Y, and Z. And so that's publicity when they're putting you in the newspaper, any publication, if you will, on or offline, where they're kind of featuring you. And that's what we want to go for, is that publicity. So we want to think about this. Let's tie this simple thing back to our niche, one message, one audience. Now, if we have a niche and we've got our message, and, let's say, I'll talk about myself for a minute, right? So if I have my message, I'm working with coaches, and I'm working with heart-centered selling made simple and fun for coaches, and I'm helping them create a full-time business, and helping I can create the business, all the business structure around it. But the main aspect is I really want to help them with the skill set and the art of selling, because that's what's going to really create the long-term business for them. So now, if a local newspaper is doing something and they can write an article, and I can let's say be in that article, I could write an article for the newspaper, I wouldn't do that now. because why would I do that? Because it's going to go in the newspaper, and how many coaches are going to read that, right? Well, I wouldn't do that, even though it could be nice publicity, but it's publicity for people that's not my market. So it's actually a waste of time for me. Now, if there was a newspaper, if you will, or a newsletter that went out to coaches, then do you see how that'd be worth my time? All right. So that's where having a niche helps us. If we don't have a niche just yet, or we know we're working with, if you will, the general population, but we haven't quite identified that, that's when, if you want to start looking at, well, how can I start marketing? That's when it's like, well, are there local newspapers, local magazines, or magazines in general that you can get in? You can call and start to develop relationships with these people. Can you become a columnist on whatever, the Huffington Post, something online, for instance, or other online publications or articles? Are there other online platforms that you can begin writing for, either just contributing to on your own, or become like a featured writer for? And so it's like finding those spaces if you're doing writing, and especially if that's one of your fortes. So it's finding those places for yourself that now, because my market isn't as that specific, I can get in front of these people. So that's what I used to do a lot of, is just finding those local places, going to, if you will, even Chamber of Commerce events, things like that, and finding who are those key players, people in the community that I could get in front of and talk to them. And then with my education-based marketing, meaning whether I could do events or articles or anything like that, was there some interest that I could write or do an event for these people to get in front of them? So whether it was published or me getting them in front of them with an event. And so that's, if you're more general, those are the things that you can do, but you don't have to pay for any of that stuff. Again, that's just networking and meeting people. Again, if you know your message, now we're just going to those places, again, on or offline, where we know our target market hangs out. And that's, if you will, the advantage of understanding that stuff. So one of the biggest aspects is let's say, live face-to-face events. And that's what I want to get into a little bit here now, is live face-to-face events. I've done live face-to-face events for 10 years. And the reason I've been switching to, if you will, 100% online is mainly because of the lifestyle I want to create, and my son being 9 years old, and me realizing it's like, damn, he is now, he's growing up, and he's my only son, and I'm not going to have that much more time before he's into girls, and he's already into girls, but, and he's just kind of doing his own thing, and he's not going to be, running to dad wanting to play with me as much anymore. And it's like, I don't want to travel. I did a lot of traveling and did a lot of events. And it's fantastic stuff. So that's my personal piece. But I'm sharing that because you have to decide for yourself in terms of what type of a business model do you want to create for yourself. Both are very, very viable business models. At the end of the day, it's sharing a message on a consistent basis, getting in front of people, whether it's specific to a message or an audience or just general, if you will. It's getting in front of those people. Did it really well for 10 years and just shifting that focus. So you can do it really well. But I want to talk about live events because live events are fantastic to showcase our energy and who we are and what we do. But in terms of how we, I'm not getting into the details of setting up events, but what I want just kind of give us some do's and don'ts and more effective strategies. The most effective strategy for live events is where you are going to a place that, let's say it's a place of business, and they have people and they want you to speak for their group. So that means I am going to, let's say, I'm just going to talk general for right now. I'm going to Coldwell Banker. They do real estate. And I'm going to go down there at 1 p.m. in the afternoon because I met a real estate Coldwell Banker agent at a networking event, like a Chamber of Commerce event, and we connected. And they have their meetings, and I'm going to come in at the end of their meeting for 20 minutes, and I'm going to give a general talk on whatever, motivation or going after what you want, or I'm just talking, let's keep it very general, because then a lot of people don't have their niche yet. And so that's me showing up at whatever time, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and there being whatever, 5 or 10 Coldwell Banker real estate agents there. So now all I'm doing is I'm thinking about what am I delivering for content, and I show up and there's people there. I don't have to worry about getting a space. I don't have to worry about inviting people. I just show up and there's people there. That is the ideal opportunity. That's what you want to do in terms of your events. The other option is I'm going to host my own event, and I did this for a while as well. And again, it's not that they're not effective in terms of the end goal of educating people, getting some loyal followings, getting some leads out of it, getting some clients out of it, building an audience type of thing. It's just, how about like this? It's a lot more work, right? And as hard as I'm willing to work and as hard as you can work, I'd rather have you not work as hard and have just as great results. And so setting up an event on your own, if you're going to do something like that, the biggest thing is try and find something where you don't have to pay for space, or you're doing something at a very low cost. And so that's where I would look within your network, your existing network of people that you know, and who has space. And it could be a church, it could be a chamber of commerce, a place that you're a member of there. I mean, I've done events at those types of places. And so is there an office building that you know of that has an extra room? Sometimes even schools, they have classrooms. You might know a teacher, or your kids are in school. There's a nursery or a daycare after hours, where those types of places, it's like, you know what? So move the toys. I've done places at fitness clubs, and mainly because that's where I started off as a personal trainer, and I had my own fitness business, personal training business for a long time before I got into coaching. So I've done a lot of things there, but obviously those places are great because people are motivated to change their bodies or change their health and improve themselves, and mindset is a huge component of that. So there's either daycare places, there are group fitness rooms. Heck, I've done stuff on the gym floors where we've cleared out some space and there's people, there's a lot of noise out there, and I'm giving a little event to 5 or 6 people. It doesn't matter. It's like, it doesn't have to be pretty. And the world of speaking and seminars is a very low glamour spot. I've done some great events where I've been in front of hundreds of people and getting paid really well to do events. And that's like the height of speaking. But the reality is 9 out of 10 events is you're in some small place in the basement of a church or whatever, and you're speaking to 5 or 6 people. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But that's the biggest thing think about this in terms of if you're going to be setting up your own events. Where or who do I know that owns something, that has a space that might not be the most ideal spot, but is it a space that's centralized enough, locations easy enough to find, that would be decent enough to host an event? And don't get too caught up in the logistics of the pieces of it. Just realize is that I want to get in front of people. And that's where you can start to simply pick a date, pick a time, pick a topic, begin to market it. That's how I suggest you start. Don't worry about your content yet. And maybe that's an ADD thing for me, and I say that non-jokingly, but you've got to create some pressure for yourself in order to get out there in front of people. So if you are hosting an event for yourself, like I said, make a list of your people, find some spaces, ask if you can borrow it, pick a night, see what works, come up with a general topic or a topic that you feel you could do something on. Do the event for free even, and that's what I recommend starting off with. Do a free event. Those are fantastic. An hour or less are definitely free events. Anything more than an hour I would charge for, but 60-minute or less, those are fantastic. Typically it's like a 45-minute and then leave like about 50 minutes for a question and answer, and start inviting people. That's the biggest thing. Get in front of people. It's not going to cost you anything, and if you can get 4, 5, 10, 15 people there, that's fantastic. Invite people, ask them to bring their friends along. And part of it too is that starting to you cultivate your message, get yourself in front of people, and getting yourself comfortable with it. Those are big things. And a quick tip with events is anytime you're speaking, you're doing any type of an event, this is going to help you when it comes to marketing, is you can create it multi-purpose, meaning is that now I'm not only doing this event, but you can record the event. You can, like even this call, I'm recording this call on the free conference call website, but I've got a little lavalier microphone hooked up to an old iPhone that it's recording this right to the iPhone, so it's just going to be a much clearer recording. And so when I would do an event, that's exactly what I would do. Is I would just have a little lavalier mic on, and it wasn't for a microphone. It was recording it. So now I've got, whatever, 60 minutes of audio. I can use it as a complete audio. I can have someone edit it. I go to Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. I can have someone edit the audio, clean it up a little bit. I can chunk it out and maybe take each point. Maybe if there's a 5-minute point, I can break that up into 5 or 6 different things, and then I've got different content I can use for social media platforms. I could video the event. Do I need to pay a videographer? You could, but depending on what level you're at. If not, just like have a good friend, take one of the newer iPhones or newer Samsungs, whatever it is. They shoot HD. As long as it's decent lighting, just put it on a tripod and film the event, or have them, focus on you for, on one angle and stay there for 5-10 minutes or for a couple points. Shut it off, go to a different angle of the room, record it, and now you've got some video that you can break up for some content, and you can use that again on your website, social media platforms. You can create a product from that you could sell as well. So these are just some quick different ideas on not only now I'm multi-purpose and repurposing my content to use to market in different places. So that's just a great way you can do that. And that's another reason why I say is anytime you do an event, always record it somehow. Even if it's just audio, always record it. Because I can't tell you how many times I did some events and I was like, man, that was really good. And I'm like, well, I had some good stuff that came out of me there. And sometimes, you're even if you're well scripted or you've kind of planned your content out, inevitably, especially if you've done events, you probably have been there, is where you get in a zone and you start coming up with some good stuff. It's like, man, I wish I recorded that. So always record it, because if anything, you can just go back to it. Heck, you could have the audio transcribed, and now you've got some written stuff too, and that all that content could go into an ebook or a real book that you want to publish. So these are great ways to start developing content. Again, it all leads back to this is the stuff we can start to use to market ourselves. So now that I described, if you will, not the less effective way of doing an event, meaning setting your own up, but the more work way, right, of setting up your own event, because now you've got to do all the logistics, but you've got to invite people to the event. The more effective way in the sense of in ease is I've got a place and I'm showing up and the people are there already, and I don't have to worry about inviting. I just show up for the people. And so those ways, if you're general, it's like that's where I would be going to. If you don't have a niche, your message isn't nailed down, I would be going to, that's where Chamber of Commerce events are good. General meetings like that are great. Anywhere you can start networking with people, newspapers. If you're going out in the real world, it's like local places, local businesses. It's connecting with people and finding out, do they ever do any educations, any lunch and learns for their event, for their employees? It's asking those people. It's like, what do you guys do? Like, do you ever do any benefits to your employees? Do you ever work on mindset or personal development? Do you ever do anything like that? I do some lunch and learns. Those are pretty popular as well. But it's starting to get your message in front of those people. And it's like when you ask those people, is like when they ask you what you do, an easiest thing to say. And I would just recommend saying this is, I own a seminar and coaching company. That's it. That's all you have to say is, hey, what do you do? Is, hey, I own a seminar and coaching company. And then what do you do? And then just bounce it back over there and start dialoguing with that person. And if they're a business owner, you want to look into, if someone owns a business, if someone has employees, can they put you in front of their employees? It's, hey, listen, I'm looking to set some events up, or one of the things I do with my seminar company is I love to go into local businesses, at lunchtime, after hours, or if they're having any company events, with the holidays coming up, they got holiday parties. Sometimes, and I love to go in there, and sometimes I'll do an hour lunch and learn. I'll do 30 minutes. I'll do 15 minutes after a meeting when you get your core leadership team together. I'll come in either before or after, and we'll talk about some, I'm just keeping it general for this call, but, talk about some personal development, talk about, goal setting, talk about leadership, talk about, anything that you can talk about. I was wondering would that be of interest to you? Is that something that you feel that would be valuable to your team? If not, who might you know? Who might you know that would be open to such things, or who might you know that would value some different events like that? And again, that's how you get your foot in the door, and that's how you get speaking in front of people. And I'm telling you, I got clients. This is how I got all my clients. I would go to Coldwell Banker, and I'd go to different, realty places. And next thing you know, they're like, yeah, could you do something for all of our realtors? My niche wasn't realty. I worked with entrepreneurs, but they liked what I did. They liked some of my information. A couple people hired me. And it's like, that's how I cultivated my business and my audience. And so my message here is as you meet those people, it's asking them those questions, and it's developing the relationships first, but it's asking those questions. So can you get in front of those people? And it's very easy to set those things up, and it takes very little time. The first few times, especially if you don't have any content done yet or anything you're going to talk about, it can be freaky because, like, what do you talk about? And it's like, oh, I don't know, right? So, but once you've got some content, then it's just like, someone could call me up today and go like, hey, could you speak tomorrow morning, for our group, do 30 minutes or whatever. I'm like, yeah, sure. What are you thinking about? What ideas? And you could go in there and you can start to do that stuff. Here's a quick tip for those of you that maybe haven't done any or many events. If someone asks, let's say you start doing this and they say, well, what can you speak on? Right? And you're like, I don't really know. So here's a way to kind of diffuse that and find out is that, well, I can speak on quite a few different things. In general, it could be personal development, mindset, etc. I'm curious, what are some of the things that you think would be valuable for your group? Again, I'm going to spin it back, and I'm going to spin it right back to the person. Instead of answering the question, this is what we do as coaches. We don't answer questions. We ask the questions. And that's what selling is about, is it's not answering questions and trying to sell somebody, but it's asking the questions to find out, well, where are they and what might be valuable for them? If they did have someone come in and talk about, if you will, personal development, mindset, leadership, some of those general topics, what do you feel would be valuable? Communication, coaching, asking questions. You throw it back to that person and see what they say. Well, let me ask you, what are your biggest challenges right now with your leadership team? What are some of the things that you're wishing if they could do something different? What would it be? And so you start coaching them and creating a dialogue and asking some questions, and start finding out, maybe some of their needs. And here's where what you can either do two things. You can say, if you have some ideas on things you can talk about, you could say, oh, well, it sounds like communication's a big challenge for you guys right now. If I were to come in and talk for 30 minutes around something on communication or a more effective communication, would that sound valuable to you? And they're like, yeah, that would be great. So listen, I'll tell you what, let me go back, let me put kind of a little thing together, and I can send you an email on kind of like a little topic. And if that sounds good, we can set it up. How does that sound? Like, great, that's awesome. Get their contact information and say, when do you think might be an ideal time for me to come in? Do you guys have any meetings, or what do you have in mind? What are you thinking about? I'm always going into asking them those things to find out, how serious are they really, and when might be a good time, because I want to set this up. Like, hey, let's set this up. Can we do it this week? It's Tuesday. We've got the rest of the week. I can come in as soon as whatever Thursday if your schedule allows it. So it's like we want to get these things going, and that's the other great advantage of doing an event that has people already there. You're going there, and the audience is already waiting for you, and they're expecting you, is because the audience is already there, and there's very little time to set something up, because that company or that workspace, et cetera, doesn't have to market per se. If it's, like, say, during work hours and it's for employees, that is, they're already there. So that's some really cool stuff to get you in the door and kind of giving you some language a little bit. So, and again, with those things, I would record those as well. And so those are some different ins and outs of different events. Let's talk about online marketing a little bit. And again, I'm not getting to deep specifics with these specifics. And really, if you look at it, it all goes back to, there's a lot of different options. But at the end of the day, we've got to pick something, and we've got to start moving forward with it, and we've got to be doing it consistently. That's the biggest thing. So if we're doing online stuff, and there's a big difference between online marketing and then face-to-face marketing. And the biggest difference is not necessarily the mode in the sense of, oh, it's on or offline. We're still delivering education-based marketing. We're still delivering great content, whether it's live or pre-recorded. We could do live stuff online too in terms of webinars, even calls like this that are virtual. But the biggest difference is that it's got to go back to your business model. And that's why I brought up earlier about where I built my business before in terms of coaching is primarily face-to-face doing live events. And then now primarily doing, online stuff and, the reason with my son and so forth and so on, being there more, not traveling and doing events. The biggest difference is what's your business model? Meaning, like, where do you want to primarily be? And either place, either business model, whether I'm doing primarily online or primarily, face-to-face stuff, either place you can have the value of being location independent. Unless you're building a very local database and you're doing a lot of local things, that's going to kind of maybe more confine you to more of an area. But both of those could be very location independent, meaning as long as you're willing to travel, you can do events. But just think about more, depending on the type of person that you are, the lifestyle you live, the lifestyle you want to create, and that's where the online marketing and the online lifestyle is a very appealing for a lot of people, is because you can pretty much do it anywhere in the world. I can market. I can do a live event. I could be doing this call in Florida with my parents where they live, or I could do it up in Massachusetts where it's not quite as warm. So it doesn't really matter where I'm doing this from. It's still an event, and it's still gonna have the same effect. So when it comes to online marketing, this is where I say if you start with the free stuff, it's like a couple things. First, if you've got a niche, meaning you have one message, you have one audience, this is where it really helps, is finding those people online. You've got to recognize, based on age, demographics, so forth and so on, a younger population is, let's say, going to be more, let's say, on Vine versus Facebook, right? And I'm not like super attuned to like all these different platforms. Like I primarily focus on Facebook because that's where my demographic is. It's a great, easy platform. There's a lot of great marketing on there. But you don't want to just, I'm just going to do Facebook. It's like, where is your audience if you know where they are? If you're dealing, let's say, more with professionals, LinkedIn might be a great way. The people that are on LinkedIn, they might be on Facebook, for instance, but it's a different mindset, a different philosophy in terms of the profile that I have on LinkedIn versus, let's say, Facebook. So it's just starting to understand, if I have a message, where do those people hang out? And then where on social media, what platform or platforms am I going to focus on? And, this is where there's going to be, a million internet gurus that are going to tell you a whole bunch of different things. I'm a really big, simple guy of keep things simple and underwhelming as possible, because it's like, why do I need to do all these social media platforms, or why do I need to do 3 or 4 platforms? It's like, can I pick one and just blow it the frig up and just hammer it and understand it and really, really work it? Are there enough people, let's say, in my market, or even if I'm doing general, let's say on LinkedIn or Facebook, just by itself, for me to get a lick of the knife, so to speak, instead of needing to eat the whole pie or even a piece? It's like, absolutely. It's like, why do I need to do all these platforms? You might have a few different platforms by default, meaning I have a YouTube channel because I do a lot of video stuff. So it's like, yeah, I host it on Facebook as well, but I've also got a YouTube channel. I don't drive people to YouTube. It's just more of, it's a great place to host my videos, and I can use that embed code and on my website and a lot of other platforms to share my videos. All right, so I have that, but my primary thing is Facebook. But find your primary platform and begin to study it, begin to learn it. There's so much on the web that, even on YouTube, to learn different aspects or the ins and outs of some of these platforms at a very fundamental level. Now, if there's an expert on the line listening, meaning I'm a Facebook guru, or I'm a LinkedIn guru, and I know all the ins and outs and all that good stuff, they're gonna be like, yeah, but, and so let me say this: don't not go to that next level. But I'm saying, if you're starting off, is like, hey, can you create a Facebook page if that's your platform? And can you post a video on there every day? Can you post, something you're writing with a little picture next to it every day? Yeah. Is that going to get you some likes, and is that going to get you some traffic? Absolutely. Especially if you're doing it on a regular basis, people are going to start to see you, and that's going to start moving you forward. Do I need to pay anyone to do that? No. Can I ask a friend if I don't now how to set up a page, or can I go on Google, how do I set up a Facebook page, and watch a 3-minute video on YouTube and do a step-by-step? Absolutely, right? So I'm trying to keep it low tech, big check. I learned that from my coach. It's just like, keep it simple, find a platform and start using some of the free opportunities on there, and start developing that content and getting it out there. That's going to be a great way to start. And like I said, if you've got that message, then find the platform where they would hang out. Same advice for if you don't quite have your message quite ironed out yet, and you're still a little bit more general. Again, it's going to be harder for you to stand out, especially on the online world, because there's so much stuff out there, especially if your stuff's more general. But again, don't let it stop you, because you never know who's going to come across your article or your video or whatever that you're putting on there, that the title or something, the picture is going to catch their eye, and they're going to go, what is this? And they're going to read it, they're going to watch it, and all of a sudden they're going to like your page, they're going to subscribe to your database, and they're going to love you, and they're going to buy something from you, and they're going to become your client. So that's the value of that. And it's just, even if it's just like, well, I don't really have anybody, like I just have my friends or just people that, that I know. It's like, well, you know what? Those friends like something, or they comment on something, and all of a sudden it's showing up on their news feed. If I'm just talking Facebook right now, and all of a sudden one of their friends sees it and maybe likes it, or it's relevant for them. So I mean, it can spread very, very quickly. The point is that you got to be doing it consistently, and that's the key to that space. But find like a platform, maybe 1 or 2 platforms that you hang out on. So if you've got a website, it's like, hey, you do stuff on your website, you post stuff on your blog, you do stuff, let's say, on YouTube and Facebook, whatever. So like those are your platforms. And like I said, before you get into the detailed stuff, just keep it general, keep it simple, so you can continue to get your message out there. I didn't realize it's already 10 o'clock already. I had a few more things to talk about, but let me just close on this, and then I'll open up for some questions. I go back to the main points that I said at the beginning of the call is keep things simple, but keep it consistent, because if it's not consistent, it's like doing one workout a month. It's like I go to the gym, I do one workout. Wow, that was a great workout. But if I'm not going to go for another week or two, it's like you might as well not even do that workout. So same with marketing, is if you're going to write something tonight or do a video and put it out there, and you don't do another one for another week or 2 weeks or whatever it is, something's better than nothing, right? But it's like it's pretty much negligible at some point. So you've got to be consistent with it. But one thing I would say is allocating your time, and I do this with my coaching clients that I work with when I'm helping them grow their businesses. And I just did this today with someone. I'm like, listen, you got to get your business hours. You got to find out, when are your business hours? And if you've got another job, that you're working, well, you've got to figure out, no matter if you have another job or you have other responsibilities, when are you working on your business? And hey, if you got 2 hours a day, if you get an hour each day, 4 hours one day, you got to know when you're working on your business. And when whatever hours you're working on your business, I would, if I'm going to give you some type of a ratio, is I would want to have, at least initially, if you don't have much of a database or anything like that, I mean, you want to be spending 60% or more of your time in getting yourself out there. And it's creating content, it's posting it online. If you're doing events, it's connecting with people in order to set up events. And if you're not finding any places you can set up, it's setting up your own event. But I want good 60+% of your time in that marketing aspect, in getting ourselves out there. A real quick video on the Selling Coaching University I'll refer you to before we finish the call is the 2 different business cycles in our business. And that's the name of it. If you just go to the sellingcoaching.com under the university, in the search, just type in 2 different business cycles, hit enter, and it will pop up. And one of the things I talk about there is making sure we have those marketing activities that we do on a consistent basis. Because if you're really spending, let's say, 60% of your business hours, and let's just say I have an hour today, I'm going to spend 60% of that hour, definitely more than half of it or so. Let's just say 40 minutes. I'm going to spend 40 minutes out of that hour doing some marketing stuff, getting some content out there. Well, when you start doing that really consistently, you're gonna get, I guarantee you're gonna be getting clients, you're gonna be getting leads, you're gonna be getting events. Like, it's just inevitable. that's the one thing I know and I can leave you with is that if you do this stuff, it's inevitable that you're going to get clients. It's inevitable that you're going to get business and grow it. Even if you're horrible at selling, it's inevitable that you're going to grow and you're going to do that. But the biggest thing about that is again, going back to the consistency piece of it, that's where I do that consistency thing. But that the whole point of that is if I keep that 60% of my time, if I keep doing that, I'm going to start getting busier. So that 60% might drop down a little bit, but if that 60% ever drops down like closer to 0 or to 0, you're going to find yourself, and that's what that business cycles video is about in a little more detail, is all of a sudden you're going to find yourself, maybe you got some clients now, maybe you got some good amount of leads, but if you don't keep that consistency with that marketing and those aspects of it, next thing you know, you're going to wake up and realize, oh my God, I have no clients, or I have no leads, or very few, and you're going to start that whole cycle over again, and it's hard to start it back up again. So always look at your hours that you're putting aside for your business, and you've got to write in there, what am I doing today to market myself and get my message out there?